welcome everyone. Happy Halloween. This is the third year now that we've been hosting our open call Inside Scoop webinar on Halloween. So I think it's becoming a bit of a tradition. I'm Jess Loveland. I am Head of New Writing at BBC Writers and with Drama Commissioning. And I'm excited to welcome you here today to discuss our open call script submission window. So this webinar is being recorded. We're going to share it later on our YouTube channel. So feel free to revisit the recording a bit later or pass it along to any writer friends. We've got closed captioning available. You can just click the little CC button there at the bottom of your screen. And we also have our fantastic BSL interpreters, Anne-Marie and Mel, here today. So thanks to both of them for joining us. We've got a full hour ahead, lots to cover. So I'll aim to keep things moving along and try not to ramble too much. I'm joined by two wonderful guests who I'm going to introduce you to shortly, and we'll save some time at the end for audience questions. You can pop your questions into the designated Q&A box at the bottom of your screens. We'll try to get to as many of those as possible in the time that we have. Since we'll be covering quite a lot of ground today, it might be worth holding off on some questions for the first half hour or so, as we often end up answering lots of people's questions and queries throughout the course of the conversation. For the past few years, we've held some online drop-in webinar sessions during the open call window, and we're going to be doing that again this year. We've got 5 sessions lined up throughout November and early December. The first one is going to be next week on Tuesday, the 5th of November, which is the day the window opens. You can find all details of the dates of those sessions and how to sign up for them on the BBC Writers website. So if we don't get around to your question today, then please feel free to join one of those drop-ins for a chat. There's always lots of members of the BBC Writers team there, so we can have a nice chat with lots of people. So I'd love to introduce you now to our brilliant guests. We've got writers Eva Edo and Matt McDevitt. Hi, Eva and Matt. Both are current participants of BBC Writers programmes, and they're also alumni of other groups. So they're going to have plenty of valuable insight to share about working with us at BBC Writers. So to kick things off, I'm going to ask them to just briefly introduce themselves, tell us which BBC Writers programmes they've been involved in, and give us a quick overview of their writing journeys so far. So who will I start with? Eva, you're first on my screen. Hi, Eva.
Hi, Jess. Hi, everybody. So I'm Eva Edo. I am a screenwriter and playwright. I'm based in between London and Dorset. I've been writing since 2013 and juggling a career until 2019, another career until 2019, and then I kind of focused very much on my creativity, and I've been doing that since then. I'm an alumni of London Voices. I'm currently on BBC Scripted. The programme ends towards the end of the year. Yes, I think that's enough for now.
Thanks, Eva. Matt, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt McDevitt. I'm primarily a screenwriter, and I came through Belfast Voices, which was like a regional scheme, and then done Drama Room, and I'm currently on BBC Pilot, which is another BBC development scheme where you get paired with an indie. So I'm working with Hartswood at the minute on that. And I've been screenwriting for about 7 years and been lucky enough to kind of go full-time at it about 2.5 years ago.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. We're going to have to listen to me ramble on a little bit more, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about a bit more detail about the open call before we jump into the Q&A with the writers, and they can tell you about their experience on the ground. So in terms of how it all works and what we're looking for, well, you've joined this webinar, so I'm sure that you already know that open call is BBC Writers' major annual script submission window. It's where we invite writers from all over the UK and Republic of Ireland to share their work with us. This year's open call window is going to open next week on Tuesday, the 5th of November, and it will close on Tuesday, the 3rd of December. We use open call to select participants for both our scripted writer development program and our UK-wide voices groups. So through this process, we hope to select over 80 writers to work with from across the UK and Ireland. You can find more information about the scripted and voices writers groups on our website. It's important to note primarily that we're looking for writers to develop, not projects to commission or produce. So we're looking for writers who have an emerging voice, meaning those who have spent some time considering the types of stories they want to tell and the type of writer that they aspire to be. So we're particularly interested in fresh perspectives, compelling characters and relationships, intriguing worlds and situations, and authentic, characterful dialogue. So often writers who succeed in joining one of our programs have applied to open call over several years, and they use it as a way to stay productive and track their progress as writers. We accept a variety of scripts through the open call, so that includes theatre, film, radio, children's, and of course, TV drama and comedy drama. However, we don't accept narrative comedy scripts, sitcoms, or sketch shows. So if you're a writer looking for a way to develop your skills and contacts in comedy, then do keep an eye out for the BBC Comedy team's Comedy Collective opportunity, which is going to open early in the new year. A key aspect of our open call process is the highly competitive 10-page sift. That's where we prioritize reading the very first 10 pages of every script that you send to us. Our advice to writers is to ensure that those opening pages are as strong as they possibly can be, introduce us to your key characters, the world that they inhabit, and give us a clear sense of the problem or the challenge that they're going to face over the course of the pilot and then over the course of the series, if it's a TV drama. And try and do that in a dynamic and economical way. Super easy when I say it like that, isn't it? Much harder to do it in reality. But if you're looking for some inspiration, I'd recommend checking out some of the fantastic scripts that we have available in our BBC Writers script library. I know that writers find reading those really helpful when they're preparing their submissions. So that's enough from me. I'm gonna stop rambling on for now. Let's hear from our writers. Let's hear about their experiences. Don't forget, we're going to have time for your questions later. So do have a think about anything that you'd like to ask Eva and Matt, and drop your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll put those to the writers. Equally, if you would like to ask your question live, you can raise your little digital Zoom hand, and we will invite you to ask your question on mic. Okay, so Eva and Matt, thank you so much for joining today and sharing your experience of working with us. I'm going to start with you, Eva. So you are on our scripted, formerly drama room, we used to call it drama room, scripted now. You're on scripted this year, coming towards the end of your time on the programme. Are there any sessions in particular that you've had during your time on scripted that help to develop your skills and prepare you for industry meetings and things since?
With regards to the writing process, I think the first kind of big session we had on the first weekend was with John York. I found that really helpful in terms of just the writing structure itself, in terms of just, creating, story, inciting incidents, midpoints, all that stuff you need to get into a script to make it a decent script. So that really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the industry itself, I'd probably say having the masterclasses, because you have a number of masterclasses throughout the kind of year scheme. The one with the production companies, anything with the production companies really helped me kind of demystify the whole process, of an idea, sharing it, pitching it, developing it, and also any classes, master classes with commissioners really helped me understand that kind of next stage about, you know, the mystery of commissioning and what actually helps. So I'd say those are the parts of skiing that really develop my skills and understanding. But there are, of course, other kind of master classes which I particularly enjoyed, which gave me a fuller understanding of the breadth of writing and what screenwriting is, you know, from animation to comedy to children's, etc.
Yeah. And had you explored any of those forms of writing before? Had you considered
No.
children's before? No.
No, I mean, I was always interested in it, but I think it's this scheme that's made me actually kind of dip my toe in it and actually progress it within the scheme.
Yeah. So it's a combination of the sort of craft skills that you develop through things like the John York session, and then sort of the doors opening to the industry a little bit and meeting some friendly faces from indies and commissioning and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And then also the opportunities that you're given within the scheme to apply for other things to give you greater experience. That's been massive for me.
Yeah. And Matt, so you moved from Belfast Voices onto Drama Room, which is now scripted, and now you're on pilot. So you're close to completing BBC writing. you get a trophy when you've done it all. How did that progression, particularly from Voices to scripted, because people who apply to Open Call, you know, they can get, you know, there's places available on Voices and scripted. Pilot's got its own call out. But how did that progression impact your development as a writer, do you think?
I mean, I think Eva really hit the nail on the head with the word demystified, you know, whenever you're starting out, like, and I would urge people to use the resources that are available, like whether it's on the BBC Writers website of scripts, and like most scripts can be found online, but things like selling documents, like what is a treatment, what is a series outline, which is some of the things that kind of further down the line you might need to know, and those are kind of resources that are harder to find. Again, I think the biggest thing was whenever I went to scripted, formerly Drama Room, working with a script editor, which is maybe not that. It's like a huge role, like any of the TV shows you watch, no matter how big a name they are, they will be working with a script editor, and it is this like integral role to TV. You know, that you have this sort of co-pilot essentially when you're writing something, because you know, and TV is not. It's a collaborative industry. Do you know what I mean? It's a village to raise a child type thing. You know, I mean, I don't think any real creative industry, even if you're writing a novel, you know, you'll have an editor. But in TV, I think like to have somebody who their job is to push you to fight for every percent that you can improve your script, and that, you know, it's not your best friend or your partner or whatever, and to kind of come at it with a kind of detached view and help you with that. That was the thing that I was like, oh, okay. It really opened my eyes, and was the script that I wrote on Drama Room for or now scripted, like it ended up kind of becoming a kind of calling card for me. Whereas if I had have written that myself without a script editor, I don't know if I just wouldn't have been able to get it as good. So so I guess one of the things, if you are entering in for Open Call, you might not have access to a script editor yet, but you might have access to other writers that your friends or peers. So the more eyes on your work, getting feedback, the more you'll improve. But yeah, that's what I found.
That's great advice, actually, to find other writers to give you peer-to-peer feedback. You give generously of your own feedback to other people, and they will, they'll do the same, won't they? I think it is hard to get critical eyes on your work at the beginning, isn't it, without a script editor?
Yeah, absolutely. But if you have writers friends, you know, and three of them read it, and you're getting the same note three times, there might be something there. And then, like, as you kind of go on, as you have return the favor, read other people's scripts as well. You know, it always baffles me that if people want to try and write TV but they don't read scripts, it's like, a chef doesn't train to be a chef by going to restaurants to eat. You know, if you're watching TV alone isn't enough, you need to read scripts. It's like you got to learn how to write recipes type thing. Sorry, I'm hungry as well. My analogies are about food. But yeah, like if you want to write scripts, read scripts. I think it's kind of quite common sense, and find peers to help you get them.
That's great advice. And we've got another plug for our brilliant script library. It's worth going. There's thousands of scripts on there. It's worth going and having a look at some of those. You know, maybe watching the show and then watching the episode and then reading the script. I think that's a really interesting exercise as well. Great. So Eva, coming back to you, you started out in theatre. And so how different did you find the process of writing plays versus TV specs, and how was that transition for you, sort of that shift in creative mind space away from theatre towards TV?
I think the kind of writing, the structure is quite similar in terms of a script and what you've got to put in it, the ingredients to make the recipe brilliant and to make the script brilliant. However, I think for me, the difference is, I think, very much what like Matt was saying about, reading scripts and kind of learning the craft very much through the reading of the scripts and looking through the library. But, TV is such a visual medium. So I've had to kind of rewind my kind of writing brain quite a bit in terms of to make sure that the script, now I've got to write visually, and that's different for the stage, and in theatre. When I do plays, it's very much about writing loads of stage directions. Not always, but usually there's quite a bit. I find that's very different. Writing for TV, brevity seems to be king. So that's been a bit of a learning curve. And I think in terms of the writing process of TV, it is quite formulaic in terms of your log line, your pitches, your outlines, your treatments. There seems to be a huge amount of planning when it comes to writing for TV, which probably I should have been doing anyway, but it's something I've really learned to do. Now I'm writing more for the screen. How difficult was the transition? Well, it was kind of a bit of a forced transition because lockdown happened, and I was, I had loads of time on my hands, and I'd been prevaricating for a very long time about moving from stage more into screen. So I was kind of forced to do that, and it was a great thing to be forced to do it. And it seemed quite a natural transition because I think I am more of a visual person. So writing for screen, particularly TV, I think there's quite a natural step. So it hasn't been too difficult.
No. How did you find coming up with ideas for TV versus theatre? Because we spend a lot of time in our groups, don't we, thinking about like the sorts of ideas that work on TV, because you have to generate so much story to keep the thing motoring along and keep people invested. Was that tricky?
Absolutely, yeah. I think what they say, TV eats story, and it really does. So, for instance, in the pilot I'm doing, I initially thought I had enough story, but no, I've run out, and I've had to put more and more and more, and twists and turns, and particularly because it's a thriller. So yeah, I think for me, ideas, I tend to write from. It's not autobiographical, but tend to write from inspired by lived experience, what I've seen, overheard, witnessed, etc., or been through myself. So the ideas keep flowing because I've heard, life's been quite interesting. But yeah, very much having to stay on it with ideas and not just think, I've got this idea, but what is this idea? How can I develop this idea dramatically and keep it going for 60 minutes? So that's been a challenge, but an interesting one.
Yeah. Matt, how do you generate ideas? Is it similar? Is it sort of things that you experience or overhear or things that you read? Where do your ideas come from?
I mean, yeah, like similar to Eva, I guess. Like I wrote a script. I grew up on a flat above a petrol station, and then spent quite a lot of my teenage years washing cars, stacking shelves, and pumping petrol. And basically, the petrol station worked at it had a ram raid robbery. It's this thing where they take a digger and they drive it into the ATM, and it's like about 5, 10 years after that had happened, this sort of like I kind of kept thinking about it, of like, well, who does this? Because it's not quite Ocean's 11. And it hadn't had a big impact on my life, but it was like I was like, oh, that's kind of, and that kind of gave me the idea of like, I ended up writing a script about a bunch of guys who do this to pay for their extravagant weddings. So you like, I mean, there's Shane McGowan had this brilliant line of like about it's about sort of songwriting about like you kind of got to be out there every day with your butterfly net trying to catch them, otherwise like Kate Bush and Paul Simon will get them all. Like their stories are everywhere. Like Philip Shelley, the script guru kind of guy, he does this brilliant exercise where you just literally get handed pages from a newspaper, and you could have the Guardian or you could have the Watford Gazette, and you have to go through it and find a story that could potentially make a film, or they are everywhere. And like what I tend to do is like I will take a jumping off point of something that I've noticed in my own life, and then obviously my own life is not actually interesting enough for TV, so you kind of ramp it up a bit. But yeah, that's so far that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, and it's working. It's just curiosity. It's just being curious, isn't it, about the world around you?
Yeah. Like stories are everywhere, and there's a reason we keep telling them. It's because
we're just curious about other people's lives, aren't we? Fundamentally, I think, and writers are maybe more curious than most people. Yeah,
very much.
That's great. And Matt, what sort of things do you think you gain from having a network of peers? Because the great thing about our writer groups is that it creates quite a nice bonded network of writers who are all at a similar level of experience and sort of coming up, emerging together. So what do you think you gain from that? Are you still in touch with some of your peers?
Absolutely. Like I was lucky enough to sell a script this year that's kind of thankfully kept the lights on in my house for now. And it was I got notes from my partner, who's also a writer, Andrew Parkle, who I was on Belfast Voices with like 6 years ago. Stayed in contact. I was in the Blue Lights writers' room. Noel and Verona from that gave me notes, and it's sort of like back to what I was saying earlier on, Village to Raise a Child. Like people are I was kind of getting the same notes back from certain people, and then that was like there's a lot of cliches in writing, and one of them unfortunately is writing is rewriting. And you'll have this lovely thing of the excitement of writing the first draft, and that's great, and celebrate it and enjoy it, but then the real work starts and you have to kind of go back and improve it. So that's what I would say. And not even like I'm on a couple of WhatsApp groups from like different writer development schemes. People will put in opportunities. Hey, I'm not eligible for this, but maybe some of you guys are. Literally spotting opportunities for people. And also moral support, because it is like the sad truth of writing is it's like writing is hard. You will unfortunately hear no more than yes. That doesn't mean you're not a talented writer. It just means it is genuinely highly competitive. Like I know some people that are readers for not for BBC development schemes, but for other ones, and it's like the standard is genuinely really high. So sometimes even just that moral support of like, oh, I was in for this thing and I didn't get it, and to be able to kind of somebody to kind of pick you back up again and kind of go keep going. So that and what I've already mentioned of the of you use your peers, you to kind of give you notes, like it's crucial. You're going to go further if you have friends that will give you decent feedback.
Yeah, and they've already got that sort of analytical story mind, so they're ideally placed.
And it's like you're not in competition with all the other writers in the world, because you know, if everybody on this webinar was given the same brief, you know, write a rom-com set in a submarine, like everyone's going to write a different story. So you're not really in competition with other people. You're in competition with yourself to improve. If you keep working on your own thing, everyone else will more than likely take care of itself, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the nice sense from all our writer development groups, is that people are there to support each other rather than compete, and lift each other up, and, you know, share information, share contacts. That's what we see happening time and again. Eva, you must be in quite a few WhatsApp groups as well after being through a few different programs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, the nice thing about doing these schemes. You do meet people, more so in person now, which is even better. But the WhatsApp groups, yeah, they're great places. And it's sort of that support. Like, for instance, the WhatsApp group for the BBC Scripted that we've now formed. It's very much about, you know, how's your pilot scripts going, and, you know, just giving that more support and encouragement, because, yeah, as Matt says, you know, it's quite a lonely business. It's quite an isolating business. You spend a lot of time on your own in a room with a computer, so it is great to have those other people around who kind of understand, you know, particularly around deadlines. You know, your head's down, everything's closed off, but you have those people who know what you're going through. So that's great.
Yeah. Brilliant. And staying with you, Eva, what opportunities have opened up for you since you've been on the schemes? Has anything good happened?
Yes, some good things have happened. So I wasn't aware that I enjoyed writing for TV, children's TV, as much, and that I think I'm okay at it, which has also been quite a surprise. So I applied for the Dumping Ground shadow scheme, which you have that opportunity when you're unscripted. So I think a few opportunities come up that you can apply for. I think there was EastEnders, Casualty, So Awkward, which is another children's TV, and the Dumping Ground. So I was unsuccessful with EastEnders, and I didn't apply for Casualty because I'd never watched it. However, I had watched So Awkward, and I've always loved the Dumping Ground, having teenage children now who had watched Tracy Beaker. So I was kind of knew my way around both of those shows. So I, particularly Dumping Ground, applied for the shadow scheme, went through quite a process. I think we had to do a pitch and an outline, and then the next hurdle was to be selected to go and spend 2 days at the Dumping Ground offices, and then be in a writer's room, and then again improve your pitch afterwards, and then be selected for the shadow scheme. There's quite a rigorous process, but I'm quite, you know, I'm chuffed that I got through that process, and I'm currently on that shadow scheme now, whereby I'm working with the script editor on an episode. So we've done a pitch, an outline, on a scene to scene. We're still on the second draft of the scene to scene, and then we'll move to actually writing the episode itself, and then you pass it over to them, and it's up to the Dumping Ground what they want to do with what you've written. But yeah, it's been a really, really interesting opportunity, and I've learned a lot. So that's my main opportunity that's arisen for me.
And what is it about writing for children's that surprised you that you enjoyed?
I suppose I was kind of wary about, you know, getting the children, you know, writing something which was capture the children's voice and also was appealing to them. I hadn't been a child for a very long time, so I didn't know if I could do that. But yeah, I seem to be able to do that. I think it helps that I have children. I've got teenage children also, kind of, so I've been enmeshed in their lives. and seeing the kind of things they've gone through, and particularly for the Dumpling Ground, which is about children within a children's home. And I have a background in child protection because I used to be a child protection solicitor, so I kind of know that world. So I think I gravitated it more towards it than I thought I would creatively. Yeah.
Brilliant. Same question for you, really, Matt. Like, what's happened since you were unscripted?
I mean, the big thing for me unscripted was, and it's kind of one of the big hurdles, is like trying to get like an agent, trying to get representation, and we literally had like a kind of a junior agent kind of basically explain, here is some tactics if you feel that you've got like the kind of unwritten rule would be that you'd have like maybe 2 pretty solid spec scripts as calling cards, and how to reach out, and maybe do it whenever you have some momentum, like so I started doing it. I got onto the writers for Blue Light, so I was able to like put that in the banner of emails to kind of send out, and ridiculously, the person who actually was the agent who was giving the advice on Drama Room as scripted now became my first agent. Then changed careers, so I've had to get other representation. But basically that, getting signed. That doesn't mean you're instantly going to be working and writing primetime TV, unfortunately. But then like the kind of you get a little bit of visibility by being on these schemes. So not only kind of getting representation, you can start applying for stuff. I did watch Casualty, so I ended up doing an episode of Casualty, which was great. And then you start and kind of back to what Eva said right at the start about the demystifying of like what it's like to be in a writer's room, and seeing how that works. And it's lovely, it's literally you and a bunch of very nice people generally sitting around trying to crack a story, and the Casualty story conference, it's like 25 people, and it's like, how's this going to work? Very well, it turns out, because it's a bunch of people that know what they're doing, and finding out the differences between writers, storyliners. Do you know what I mean? Like people that are looking at the big picture, not just your episode and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, my experiences on Drama Room / scripted kind of it led to a few kind of credits, things that you can put on your CV that can get you people to take you a bit more seriously, and then take every credit you can get if you have the opportunity. Radio in particular, I think, is a big one. You want to, like, nobody's going to hand you the keys to Sunday night 9 p.m. hour drama, until you've built up a few credits, so it's getting the opportunities to kind of get them. I always think about it. You don't want to get on an airplane and hear that the pilot is telling you that it's their first ever flight, but they feel really lucky and they've done a lot of flight simulators. You want to be their brilliant flight type thing. So yeah, it just led to kind of smaller opportunities, and smaller opportunities lead to bigger opportunities.
That's it. Yeah, it all, and I think it's just that thing about being curious about other forms as well. Like you were talking about audio, Eva exploring children's. There's lots and lots of opportunity for writers to explore other mediums if they're just sort of curious and watch lots, and listening to audio drama as well is a great, it's a really great mode of writing, isn't it? It makes you prioritizing the audio over the visual. It's a real challenge, I think, for writers who have been writing TV specs for a long time to sort of shift that. But just exploring and being curious is, so it's all good practice, and you just never know where the next opportunity is going to come up. So great. And then just a question about tips. How we get over 4,000 submissions for open call annually. Do you have any tips, Matt, for how you try and stand out amongst thousands of submissions? Do you remember the script that you sent us?
Yeah, the one that got me onto like drama room scripted literally came from there's a bizarre amount of circus schools in the part of the world I'm from. It's like kind of like the Peace dividend. We randomly got a lot of circus schools. So a guy that lived in the street over from me that I was friends with used to literally cycle into town in his unicycle. And I just started thinking about, I wrote this sort of like murder mystery about ex-circus performers. And it was weird and visual, and it maybe, I mean, I guess I always think of two things. Well, one, you like maybe don't start with, two people sitting in a living room having a cup of tea, because it's not the most visually exciting type thing. And I guess you want to kind of get straight in with interesting characters. And the way where do you find interesting characters? I always sort of think like everybody has lived a life. You'll have at one point in your life been in a weird precinct. And by precinct, I mean that could be jury duty. It could be the summer job you worked in a warehouse. You'll have had some unique life experience and try and like, well, not everybody's done that, and try and mine into those to find interesting kind of characters. So yeah, that's kind of what I like. I knew people that worked in a circus school, so I was like, I'm going to write about a circus. Um, uh, Similarly with the ATM robbery thing I mentioned before, like it kind of came from something that was already in my life. So just yeah, like search the corners of your life. You'll have done something interesting somewhere and try and find like this is your chance to stand out. What people aren't looking for is two detectives being told that there's a body on the beach type thing. This is your opportunity. You're not looking to try and get this made. You're trying to stand out from the crowd. So be as weird and wonderful and unique to whoever you are. That's this is your chance to do that.
Yeah, that's what we're really looking for, is people to is characterful script
Yeah.
and expression of people's voice on the page. So we don't want to see people rehashing things maybe that they've seen on TV that's been really successful but feels a bit familiar. So yeah, that's good advice. Lean into who you are. And we had a writer on one of these a few years back that said something interesting. They said, everybody's more interesting than they think they are. Everybody thinks everybody else has had more interesting life experiences. But when you really think about it, things will have happened to you, or people that that are interesting and that you can unpack in your script.
100%.
Eva, do you have any tips for everybody on here who's thinking about sending a script in to us?
I think again, I think it follows on from what Matt was saying. I think in terms of an idea, I think it has to be an idea which really excites you. I think you have to write about something that you want to write about, not as you were saying, just not rehash things you've seen, but something that you really excites you. I think that always shines through. Yeah, and if it can be inspired by something that you've experienced, or someone that's experienced, or something you've seen, I think that's really helpful. And I'm big on characters. I'm very character driven writer, so I think interesting, big, larger than life characters, and yeah, always a sprinkling of humor I think helps, especially if you're tackling kind of quite big topics. I like kind of doing state of the nation things, but yeah, I've got to remember to sprinkle some humor to make it more accessible. So I suppose those are my tips.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think, yeah, if you're dealing with something very heavy or serious and it's got some gravitas to it, then just having those moments of levity where you can puncture some of that drama and remind everyone that we're all human. I think that's really important. And people watch TV for characters, don't they? I mean, that's it's the characters that we fall in love with on our favorite TV shows, isn't it? Those big iconic characters that people dress up as at fancy dress parties and things like that. Great. Eva, do you remember what script it was that you sent in to us? Can you remember which one it?
Yeah, I sent in Sacred Acts, which I've actually gone on and developed by that I mean redrafted and redrafted millions of times. Had a bit of script editor help with it also, and now I've got a director attached, and we're trying to pitch it to production companies. So yeah, it was a great. I actually started writing that on London Voices. So it's kind of gone through quite a bit of process, you know, London Voices, then put it in as the open call, and then kept working on it. You know, that's another kind of just a general tip, you know, just keep on writing, you know, yes, focus on the open call, get a really good script in for that, but also keep writing other stuff because you never know when you'll need it.
Yeah, just keep generating ideas and
Making work,
and reading things. Is there anything that you're watching at the minute that you're enjoying? Any viewing tips, any TV shows that have stood out in recent months?
So I've just watched Mr. Loverman, which I really enjoyed. Interesting for me because it's all about, you know, your adaptation of books or being inspired by a book. And it's something I'd love to do at some point, adapt something for TV. So I love the book, and I love the TV program. So I've just binge watched that. I've just watched Show Trial, also, which I really enjoyed, and and lots of other stuff, which I won't go into.
That's the thing. I think if people have ambitions to write for TV, you've got to watch lots, haven't you? I think lots of people, you know, they're interested in TV, but maybe they're not, you know, they're not keeping up with everything that's coming out. And there's lots. It's a full-time job, but you know, just
and pinpoint what I tend to do, particularly if I'm researching an idea, I will make sure I track down TV shows which might have touched on that idea and just see how they did it, and kind of learn from that process. And yeah, watch loads of BBC, but you know, watch loads of other streamers, because there's lots out there, lots of content, and be discerning as well. Watch good stuff.
Yeah. Matt, is there anything you're watching at the minute that you'd recommend that's been inspiring?
I think honestly the last thing I watched that I loved was Colin from Accounts. It's kind of because I kind of came in through comedy, and comedy is hard, so I kind of switched after a couple of years to trying to write more drama with the kind of. I would also second what Eva says, sprinkle some humor in there, because if you don't have, like, something happens in your day-to-day life every day that's funny, so if you don't have that in your script, it's going to be inherently slightly unrealistic. But I love Colin from Accounts. I really enjoyed the Interview with the Vampire. It was sort of surprised me. I thought it was an interesting take, and the Penguin, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm still. We were chatting about it earlier on. I'm most excited about seeing Hugh Grant and Heretic. That's which I haven't seen yet, but that's. But yeah, like watch a variety of stuff. Because I'm trying to do hour-long dramas, I now find I can tune my brain off a bit more if I'm watching comedy or something, because I'm not trying to do that. Whereas if I'm watching hour-long dramas, I'm like, how did they do that? And you're looking for, you know, that's the end of Act 1, that's the inciting incident, that's the midpoint, and you're trying to look at the architecture of how the script works.
You're watching with a notepad.
Yeah, that's like, which is good. It's useful to do for sure. But then sometimes just allow yourself to just, you know, watch TV.
That's it. Just enjoy it. Soak it up. Brilliant. Emily has appeared on the screen now, so that means it's Q&A time. So I can see there's been lots of action in the Q&A box.
There certainly has. Yeah. So I'll start with the Q&A box, but if you would like to ask a question yourself, I will give you the ability to speak, but just so I know you want to do that, raise your virtual hand, I think we mentioned earlier. I'll start with a few Q&A boxes for people to raise those hands though. So just before we were actually touched on this, but we've had a little cluster of the kind of similar questions about Matt and Eva, about how you might write your personal experiences. So one question was, Are you ever fearful / worried of writing a story from your life or experience that you feel won't find an audience, or is it best just to write? I guess, Matt, do you want to go first?
Always write. Like there's a podcast Beg LaFauve does, kind of quite successful screenwriter, and I think she calls it like the lava. Like if you are drawing on stuff from your own life, there's probably a reason that it's making you feel uncomfortable, but also maybe there's something that is worth mining into because there's a reason why you want to write about it, and like I guess too, like, I mean, drama isn't about, it's about, he was completely right. We need characters. People come to a TV show for the premise, but they don't stay for the premise. They stay for the characters. But remember to give your characters a hard time, I guess. Like, don't write about somebody that you love and then have them have like a wonderful day, because that's not really what drama is. But I would say if there's something in your life that you want to write about it, like, try and face your fears and write it. Basically, it's always a good advice just to make pages, but at least you'll have something to work with. Eva mentioned earlier on about her script kind of going through various kind of, life stages and stuff like that. Nothing's ever dead, it might go in a drawer for a couple of years and then maybe it'll click some 2 years down the line and you'll have something else to add to it and it'll just like spring it open for you. But sorry, that was a bit rambling.
That's great. Eva, what do you think?
I think you should, as Matt says, write. Just get it down. Yeah, I think there's always a little bit of a fear or being scared of exposing yourself. But for me, I'm inspired by whatever it is, life experiences of what I've seen or what I've overheard. I don't just write that out verbatimly what's happened. I would just be inspired that and let that trigger something and then go with whatever it's triggered. Yeah, and pick something out of that, which is, probably the most dramatic possibly, because you want some drama, and just, distill that. Yeah, and I think characters, it's got to be, character driven and give them massive obstacles. So I hear what you're saying, possibly about the audience. You think the audience might not like it, but you can kind of engineer that the audience do like it if you put the right ingredients in, if you put the conflict, if you put the obstacles, if you put the big characters, if you have a bit of humor where it's dark, so I think you can kind of bring your audiences round, just make sure those ingredients are there.
Thanks. And you just touched on it slightly, but Luke wanted us to sort of expand on it and ask for any advice on protecting yourself when you are dealing with quite personal issues and life experiences, and not whether you have to be worried about putting too much of yourself on display. Eva, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so I think, as I just said, I tend to write about motherhood. I am a mother and I love motherhood. I love the good, the bad, the ugly, everything, all of it. So my stories are inspired by my motherhood experience. That might not just be about me being the mother. It might be about my children's experiences or wider experiences around motherhood. But as I say, it's not autobiographical. It's inspired. So I take an essence of that and then I will run with it. I'm not in the kind of business of laying my life out. Yeah, I me, that's territory I don't really want to go down. So yeah, I think being inspired and then taking something and pushing it. And if it is too close to you, then maybe you need to step back and, make it less about you.
Mm-hmm. And Matt, have you got anything to add on that one?
No, I would just agree. Like, I would tend to use something I've noticed from my life as a jumping off point. But yeah, definitely protect yourself. Like, don't, like, the one time I wrote about something that was sort of like my childhood, teenage years, it did feel a bit deeper or digged in a bit more. It did make me feel uncomfortable, but I was like, I wasn't writing specifically about my life. I was writing about themes of things that had happened to me around then. So I muddied the waters a little bit so that I'm not writing this specifically a thing about me or whatever. But don't ever expose yourself more than you are comfortable with. You know, I would say.
That's great advice. Thank you. Now we're going to go a bit radio show here, and I'm going to start giving people the ability to talk. So Claudette, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask your question. Are you there, Claudette?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Hi.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Hello. I just want to say what you said was so interesting. I mean, I've been one of those people that have, I think a lot like Eva, you're at that point where you want to explore a career. You've done your normal sort of like, I did media studies at school, I did it at college, and then I went to university, I did communications, and then I went off and I got what my parents said was a real job. So you didn't really put yourself out there and take that risk because you had to have the house, the mortgage, and blah, blah, blah. I've done that. And people have always said to me when they speak to me, why don't you write? Because the things you say and the things you come up with, I feel like I'm listening to a book. But I find when I write a book, I get bogged down in detail. And then someone just said to me, maybe you should try script writing because you have the conversations down. You could say something to someone and tell them exactly what you think should have happened in a story or sort of scenario, but you don't like the detail part. Is that a good way of using your skills? I mean, everyone says you have a book in you, blah, blah, blah. But I just think that for me, writing a book, I can get so bogged down that I get to a point where I have a block.
Thanks, Claude. Matt, David, do you want to?
I'd probably say hi, Claudette. Thanks for the question. I hear what you're saying about getting bogged down in detail, but I probably would say writing for the screen, specifically about TV here, I think you still need that detail. I still think you need the detail. It might not all go down into your script, but particularly when you're developing your pitches or your outlines or your treatment. Sorry to use those terms because I'm sure not everybody, they're a bit mystifying, but when you're doing your documents, your planning, you need that detail. So I think it's all right to have that detail, Claudette, because you're going to use that and then you're going to mine and distill it into a script, and you're going to have all that lovely backstory and all that you won't be in your script, but you'll hint at, and you'll have those lovely big characters which you have built from all that detail. So yeah, I think the details fine, but it may not go in your script.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, happy, Claudette. Thanks for your question. Thank you. So I'll go to Teresa. Are you there?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. I'm Teresa Godley. Just written my first short film, which is doing the festival circuit and doing quite well. I'm also a friend of Morgan Lloyd Malcolm, who's joined some BBC writing initiative at the moment and spoke really highly of it. So it's kind of made me interested in doing this. My question is, when I submitted something to a production company a while ago, their feedback was a little frustrating. It was the lead character is not likable. Now, when I've said that to other writers, they're like, oh, this is such BS. Like, what? And especially when it's a female character. And as a 40-something woman myself, I'm like, why does that character have to be likable? It's as writers and as people looking at scripts and judging scripts, is this really of importance? Because it makes a difference when you're considering your character as like, oh, I make her smiley and friendly and warm and fuzzy, rather than what real life is, which is frustrated and menopausal and wanting to kill everyone in her path. So could someone please tell me whether this is a myth or if it's true?
Matt, do you want to take that one first? I guess Jess might have something to say as well. She's smiling.
Yeah, Teresa, I would 100% agree. Like, you're going to always get notes, but look at the examples of great TV characters. Like, have they always been like sunshine and lollipops? Because no harm, that sunshine and lollipops are kind of boring. It's the rough edges and the flaws that make characters. So yeah, I don't know if that would have been a great note without knowing the specifics of your short, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a fallacy that, you know, your lead character has to be, you know, Citizen of the Year. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, thank you.
And we enjoy watching unlikable people do things that we would never have the guts to do, don't we? Like, I've just finished watching season 3 of Industry, and I don't particularly like any of those characters, but I love watching them. I love watching what they're getting up to. There's something delicious about sort of quite difficult, challenging people.
Yeah, definitely.
Transgressing. There's something fun about that, isn't there? Because it's sort of a vicarious pleasure for us. We can love to hate people as well. But,
yeah, definitely. I mean, my character was literally the opening scene, because I'm trying to get I'd love to make my short into an episodic, was literally her banging on the door of her ex-partners, demanding to see her son because he's been withholding her son from her, and that made her unfriendly, apparently, and unlikable. Like, this is real life, guys. Like, you know. So thank you for busting that myth. I don't have to now rewrite my whole character and make her sunshine and lollipops, as Matt put it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We've got quite a few people wanting to ask the question, so I'll try and run through those. Sorry, we probably won't have time to get to everyone. So Donal, do you want to?
Hello.
Hi.
I think you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Great. I've got 2 questions, so I'll try and be really quick. The first question is if it's possible to define narrative comedy specifically. So I've been trying to read on your website about how you define narrative comedy as opposed to comedy drama, and I can't find the answer. So that's the first one. The second one is more of a personal question. I use music a lot in my writing, including the lyrics are important to the scenes. But Philip Shelley recently, his Channel 4 script writing competition, had a blog where his advice was not to use a title card with like a literary comment or quote that's relevant to your script, because they want to see, or you want to see, our writing. So I'm trying to balance what I do with music in my script, even though the lyrics of the music are important and you may not know the particular track. So yeah, I'm some conflicted about that, how I'd approach that. Does that make sense, my question even?
Yeah. So yeah, the comedy versus comedy drama one is always a very sticky one, and it's probably one we'll delve into more with the drop-ins. And also we have a couple of blog posts about that on our website. And in terms of the music, when a script is submitted to us, we won't consider any additional video or music content. We'll just consider the script itself and the lyrics that you submit as part of the text. So I'm sorry, that was, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's the answer I needed. If so, the example I probably give is Aaron Sorkin's Social Network. His original script had some Wings, I can't remember, like Wham Wings, a song that I'm not familiar with, but I knew the song in his script as scenes were shown of the Winklevoss brothers rowing and Harvard and that world. So without that, it wouldn't have conjured Harvard so well, and the Social Network was related to the song. I think the final movie didn't actually go that route, but so that's kind of what I do. But that's going to use a lot of somebody else's words, which is the songwriter. And I don't know if that's going to then limit my ability to show my voice.
Can you just reference the track as a sort of like a reference tool, so to give us a bit of atmosphere and sense of what we'll be playing? Sometimes if I'm reading a script and somebody references a very specific track, I'll ask Alexa to play it for me.
Okay, so if I said Talking Heads, Nothing But Flowers,
yeah,
it's like it has lyrics about sort of eco-activism, or it's a sort of ironic take on, you know, there used to be a shopping mall, now it's just fields and trees.
Yeah.
But if you don't know the song, then that doesn't really support the scene. So I don't know whether readers will be as judicious or judicious as you as to actually Google something.
I think my advice would be, you know, your job as the writer is to embed all of that, all of the themes and the messages that you're wanting, all the subtext that you're wanting to convey in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
If you're relying on the music to do the heavy lifting, then that can be tricky. So make sure that it's in the scene and that the music is adding value, because, you know, we're just looking for the potential of the writing. You know, we're not aiming to make any of these scripts. You know, we're looking for writers to develop. So, you know, we're always looking at the quality of the writing. And, you know, even if the script were to get into production, you know, you might not be able to get that track. It might be too expensive.
Exactly.
You know, so make sure that the scene is doing what you need it to do, and that the music is elevating it and adding, you know, emphasizing that, rather than relying on that to do all the work for you, if that makes sense.
That's great. Thank you very much. And also thank you very much to the previous question about likable characters. That was a great question and great answers. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Donal.
I'm afraid we've run out of time. I'm sorry for the people who have got their hands up, but you can always just drop us an email to the inbox, bbcwriters@bbc.co.uk, and have a look on our website for the next drop-ins, where we'll do more kind of nuts and bolts questions about your actual submissions. So Jess, I'll hand over to you for a sign off.
Well, that just flew by. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much to the audience for all the brilliant questions, for joining us over lunchtime. Thanks to our brilliant writer guests for sharing all your advice and insight with us, and inspiring everybody with your writing careers. So I just want to wish everybody lots and lots of luck preparing their submissions for Open Call in the coming weeks. We're really looking forward to meeting lots of you at the drop-in webinars. If you have time to join us for those, they're throughout November and the start of December. Check the website for details. So have a lovely rest of the day. Enjoy Halloween if you're doing anything, and hope to see more of you soon. Bye.